Hello everyone, and welcome to session 14 of our Mummy the Curse Chronicle, Oceans of Eternity. And just to kind of start things off, we'll go with a little recap of what had happened on the last session here. And speaking of that, on our last session of Oceans of Eternity, our mummies, our Meret, Sechet, Tomos, and Nesret here, had just recovered a stolen treasure belonging to a fellow Arisen, the White Jackal, to be specific, but not without great cost. The Meret had been attacked by thieves, who proved to be far more dangerous to the deathless than common criminals. And they narrowly escaped from being trapped within a blazing inferno. But with the White Jackal's chest in hand, the Meret went to the palace of Antiochus to confront the Jackal. And within the marble halls of that palace, the Meret sat down and presented the White Jackal with his stolen chest. The Jackal inquired on how the mission went, and Sechet explained their investigation at the harbor of Eleutherios and their struggle against the thieves at the Church of St. Polyeuctus. As Sechet explained the events of the past night, the Meret watched the White Jackal closely, trying to judge his reaction, but the enigmatic Arisen proved too difficult to read. Satisfied with their story, the White Jackal claimed he was glad to see that they were all right, but couldn't help but notice the broken seal on his chest, and inquired if the Meret had upheld their promise not to read the ancient tablets within. The Meret answered that the seal had been broken before they had recovered the chest, honestly, and the White Jackal seemed to take them at their word. On that note, however, Nesret confronted the White Jackal on just what exactly was going on. The White Jackal suggested that none of this was their concern now, but Nesret pushed back and claimed that having been attacked, that the Meret was now a part of this, whether they wished to or not. Nesret again went after the White Jackal and suggested that the Jackal had knew more than what he had let on, that the thieves were far more dangerous and more prepared than the Jackal had made them out to be, and demanded to know what this ashen reliquary was, something mentioned in the encrypted notes he had found within the church's vault. Sechet tried to calm the tense situation between the two, while also helping Nesret to convince the White Jackal to share what he knew. The pair narrowly succeeded, and White Jackal revealed that he believed the gang of thieves was actually a cult under the patronage of one of the Shuang-Sen. He claimed that the cult had operated in the city for some time and had, at times, thwarted his efforts within Constantinople. The Shuang-Sen and their cult had always seemed to be 2 steps ahead of him, and the White Jackal speculated that the Shuang-Sen may possess some sort of preternatural intelligence or precognitive abilities. Tomos inquired if this Shuang-Sen cult could be behind the Meret's recent misfortunes, and while the White Jackal said he could not be certain, he believed that the hypothesis was quite likely to be true. Sechet used the power of her lion's pride affinity to learn another one of the White Jackal's aspirations, only to discover that the White Jackal had some damning secret that he was trying to prevent the Muret from learning, yet seemed determined to work alongside the Muret regardless. Nonetheless, the White Jackal, true to his word, held up his end of their deal and tossed a pouch of coins to Tomos, but reminded Seshet and Nesret that their information would only be shared with them alone. On that cue, Seshet and Nesret exited the room, which left Tomos alone with the White Jackal. Tomos wanted more information on this Shuang-Sen cult, and that they should share what they knew about their shared enemy with each other. Tomos explained that he wished to strike back at this cult and would fight them on the White Jackal's behalf, but he would require information and connections into the imperial bureaucracy of Constantinople. The White Jackal agreed, and he filled Tomos in on what he knew, that the Shuang-Sen preferred to use the bodies of beautiful women as its host, and that they had a right-hand masked man who had proven quite difficult to kill, either because another cultist had taken up the mask and the mantle, or because this masked man possessed some form of immortality, perhaps from being the Shuang-Sen's facade, a twisted version of the Arisen's eternal companion, Sadiq. The White Jackal claimed the cult would be near impossible to track, as he had tried countless times before, with no success. But if the cult had some interest in this ashen reliquary that Nesret had mentioned, then searching for it would likely put them on a collision course with this cult. And if they managed to snag it first, the Muret could use it to lure the cult and their patron out of hiding, or at the very least deny the Shuang-Sen the use of this relic by condemning it to destruction or to Duat. The White Jackal knew of this relic, but had chosen not to pursue it, as he wished to spend the precious hours of this Sothic turn trying to achieve his own goals, rather than feeding his judge's ceaseless hunger for Sakhen, as he had in so many other lifetimes. He suggested that Tomos use Kefir to track down the relic, or perhaps enlist the purported divination abilities of Nesret's companion, Minervina. Tomos then left, and Nesret entered to have his turn with the White Jackal. The White Jackal revealed himself as a fellow member of the Tef Aabi, and the two spent some time sharing a mutual appreciation for the crafts of their shared guild, and how those crafts had manifested in the great city of Constantinople. With small talk out of the way, the White Jackal was true to his word and revealed to Nesret his grand plan. He presented Nesret with an ancient papyrus, which contained part of a layout for a city that brimmed with potent mystical energy, an unmatched use of the Tef Aabi's sacred architecture. The White Jackal informed Nesret that the scroll had been recovered from the ruins of an Aremite colony, and that these were no ordinary plans, but partial blueprints of the city of pillars itself, of great and terrible Arem. He spoke of turning Constantinople into a new Arem, the center of a new nameless empire, using the knowledge contained within these plans, and asked Nesret to join him on this most ambitious mission. The most ambitious mission any Tetha Abi could perhaps partake or undertake. Seeing as this might be Nesret's best chance to actually achieve such a feat, and dazzled at the prospect of witnessing a new Irem, Nesret agreed to assist the White Jackal in achieving this monumental task. Brimming with newfound excitement, Nesret left and bade Seshet to enter. Seshet, however, waited for a few moments, trying to consider what significance this palace held to the White Jackal. She surmised that the White Jackal was too comfortable here, and that perhaps the safety and security of his tomb was likely somewhere nearby. Seshet inquired with the White Jackal on his secret to maintaining memory. The White Jackal revealed to her the secrets of talismans, and how one could bind a relic to their soul to function as a repository of sorts, both for Sechem and memory. Seshet realized, however, that to bind such a relic in such a manner would require a great deal of Sechem, and that she would have to act fast if she were to acquire a suitable relic before her own Sechem slipped from her grasp like sands through an hourglass. With all of the Moret's business concluded, they returned to the safety of their tomb. There, Tomos confronted Nesret, demanding to know why he had hid the knowledge of the Ashen Reliquary and where he had learned of it. Nesret chose to lie to Tomos, perhaps bend the truth, which angered both Tomos, who saw through the deception, but more importantly, Nebha, the flame, Nesret's judge, who just so happens to preside over the sin of deception. As Seshet returned, Tomos stated that he believed that the White Jackal was trying to play them against each other. Tomos stressed that they could only truly trust each other, and that the Merit should reevaluate what information they chose to keep and chose to share with each other in light of recent events. The Merit revealed to each other what they had learned from their time alone with the White Jackal, and Nesret revealed that he had learned of the Ashen Reliquary from the encrypted notes that he had stealthily snatched from the vault beneath the church of St. Polyeuctus. Together, the Meret promised to be more open with each other going forward. However, they also decided to try and, shall we say, play up their disunity around the White Jackal. An effort, perhaps, to convince him that his plan to drive a wedge between them had succeeded. Now, Tomos, Nesret, and Seshet are once again left to their own devices. So I ask of each of you, what, pray tell, do you intend to do now?
I guess body's buried.
There you go.
A solid effort. One that's been waiting for you for some time. That pile of corpses in the hallway isn't getting any younger. Isn't getting any more alive. So that's on Nesret's mind. What about the rest of the Moret? What's your next steps?
That plans on doing a bit of relic hunting. She wants to get this talisman built, and she's got a limited time frame to do it. So, trusting to the senses of Kepha, she is going to try and locate an artifact of power.
Okay, so that's Sachet's plan, and lastly, what of Tomos? What's his next step here?
In addition to working on talking to the remaining cult members, that Vitalius, Vitalius brought up, Thomas would like to start looking for the Ashen Reliquaries, also using Kefir.
Okay. Well, as your previous conversation sort of draws to close, and you start to, shall we say, take your next step here. The sanctity, shall we say, of your tomb is interrupted somewhat by a rather piercing yelp as you turn to see a bit of an awkward sight, perhaps. You find, quite curiously, Mao has been sitting at the foot of the stairwell leading into your tomb here. And Mao is, shall we say, bristling and hissing, as it were, as that, shall we say, aggressive, or that aggression seems to be directed at someone descending down the staircase here. And a few moments later, a head kind of pokes underneath the trap door. That of Minervina, who kind of tentatively shouts out down the hallway, "Is anyone home?" And quickly followed by a easy, as you spy Minervina trying to calm an agitated Mao, who seems disturbed that their rest, perhaps, had been violated by this intrusion.
Good cat. I raise an eyebrow looking at Nesret when I hear Minerva speak up.
I guess I'll go see her. It's been a while.
Been a while, yeah. So,
like a whole day.
Yeah, right?
Over a couple weeks.
Yeah. You just can't seem to get this person away from you. On that note, you kind of stride out to meet Minervina, and Minervina doesn't waste much time, kind of tentatively kind of stepping around the cat, trying to avoid provoking it any further before making her way to greet you. And as she kind of descends to the bottom, as she reaches the bottom of the staircase and starts walking down the short little hallway you have to your tomb proper, Minervina, spies your companions and the chamber beyond. And Minervina kind of pauses for a moment. She's like, "Oh, I hope I wasn't interrupting anything."
Were we done at the end of last? Can't remember.
I think we more or less got, Thomas got everything.
Came to an awkward sort of silence, the natural break in the conversation, as it were. And now it seems Minervina's providing you with a convenient escape.
Ah, perfect. We were just finishing up. Um, I was gonna finish cleaning the tomb today, but I won't immediately look at the pile of dead bodies.
the skeletal corpses you have kind of piled up in the hall down here. And Minervina kind of looks at you and kind of looks at the pile of bones and tattered clothes with a sort of mild hint of disgust on her face, and she's like, I suppose they are rather unsightly. Probably do you well to tidy up a bit, I guess. Need a hand?
Sure. I guess probably need to find a location to bury them that's remote and no one's gonna find us. I don't know if you would know of any place.
Well, I mean, I suppose that depends on what you consider burial, I guess. I mean, if you want to take the easy way out, you have, what, miles of ocean in front of you. Everyone seems to treat it as their dumpster. But, I mean, I suppose if you're looking for a proper burial, you're not in the right place. I'd at least start heading a bit further away from the center of the city here. But, I mean, I suppose if you want to be particularly cautious, you might want to venture beyond the walls.
Oh. I think it'd be a bad habit for humanity, for people to start dumping stuff in the ocean. Let's avoid that before it becomes an issue. Where, so on this map, where would our tomb roughly be?
Yeah, so if you're looking at our little map of Constantinople here, which coincidentally is the same map on Wikipedia, we're over here towards the first hill, over in the Mangana district. Kind of a short walk from what you might consider the downtown or the heart of Constantinople. But given where we're at, things are kind of rather densely populated. Well, you might certainly find, some, alley or yard to bury these bodies in. There's probably a lot more prying eyes this close to urban development, shall we say. You might be able to get away, perhaps, with managing, shall we say, a more official burial, perhaps. You might be able to convince a church or monastery, perhaps, to, rehouse these remains within their grounds. But explaining a cart full of corpses to the local priest might be a bit of a tricky conversation to be had. But regardless, the further you head away from the heart of the city here, the more and more rural things tend to get. Though, if you want to be absolutely certain no one might spy you digging a mass grave, you might even venture beyond the Theodosian walls and out into the wilderness outside of the city, though that's a bit of a trip, shall we say. Ooh, sorry.
Let's check here. So 35 feet.
And I suppose, if you really considered it, if you really wanted to get out in the middle of nowhere, you could potentially, shall we say, charter a vessel of some sorts. There's a lot of desolate coastline and sparsely populated islands. After all, you should know you came from one where Nereus or whatever spy you, though that might even put you, shall we say, further out of civilization than you might care for. But if you wanted to be absolutely private and secluded, could be an option.
Oh,
But-
I probably don't really have the money I want to spend on a charter.
What is Nesret
Wait, didn't we
thinking?
just get a bunch of money?
You did.
How much is a bunch of money?
Well,
And how much is a charter in
to-
relation?
To be honest, you didn't get that money. Thomas got that money.
Yeah.
As that was
so-
his request. You did get a down payment. You specifically asked for a down payment in addition to what you had acquired. And I think we had settled that it was resources too. And you had spent some of it on getting new threads for yourself. Though clothes wouldn't necessarily drain that entire amount of cash that you received. But shall we say it's not a ton left over to haggle for that sort of thing, but you might be able to haggle, assuming you're charismatic enough. You might be able to convince someone that such a trip is worth it. Though, then again, considering the cargo that you're carrying, you might want to find someone that's not going to ask too many questions.
Yeah, I feel like that's just gonna be too much of a pain. I'll probably just trek the cart somewhere.
Okay.
I have to get away from the city.
Yeah, what are you thinking? You want to stay within the walls and find like a some kind of rural area closer to the walls, or do you want to push out of the city entirely and kind of venture out into the wilderness, as it were, beyond the safety and security of the ocean walls?
Probably inside the walls.
Not venturing too.
Or somewhere remote.
too far.
There's got to be a place somewhere.
Mm-hmm. You have farms and vineyards, that sort of thing, still within the walls. I mean, what value would the walls be if they did permit the defenders to exist, in some capacity to resist siege? And the walls here, and as you kind of drag the cart, shall we say, further out, spying the walls kind of poking up above the landscape, they are quite impressive, and given the, shall we say, placement of the city here on this little peninsula jutting out into the Sea of Mawara, it's a quite defensible position when you're surrounded by water on, three sides. You can really devote a lot to building a wall on the single side that is left. But nonetheless, kind of venture out into the hills, as it were. Do you have location in mind here on the map where we're going to bury the bodies per se, or do you just kind of, I guess, wander until you find somewhere you feel is appropriate? Do we want to put an X marks the spot on the map here of quite literally where the bodies are buried.
Is there any forest or trees? I'm thinking probably
I mean, yes, there's probably going to be some.
based on the contours. Well,
Yeah.
this is like the lowest spot, but that's obviously a river, so I imagine there's people by it.
Yeah,
But,
this is the map. Map only gives, elevation here, but you can kind of get the idea.
I guess something secluded in a lower spot.
Sure. Yeah.
It'd look weird burying bodies at the top of a hill.
Yeah. So, kind of somewhere. We'll say somewhere over here, kind of at the foot of the Lycus River. Beneath. Well, let me do it a little bit over here. Kind of at the foothills of the 7th hill here, finding a nice little, shall we say, secluded spot. My other question for you: when do you intend to do this actual
All night.
bear? Do you want to wait until night? Okay.
Yeah, night.
Yeah. I mean, you could do it during the day. Might be a little more risky, but all right. So, all right. So you kind of plan out your course here. You get everything plotted out. You and Minervina get the cart loaded, but you've got some time to, shall we say, spare, and you perhaps spend the day kind of looking for a good spot, as it were, kind of scouting out the area, till you find something, secluded enough that you might return to later under the cover of night. But your little excursion with Minervina here is not without distractions of its own. During your time here, out and about, you felt a presence with you. You've, how do we put this? To you.
Is it a pissed off judge?
Yeah, you could say that. It's less of a weight on your shoulder now, less of a crushing grip. It's changed as you are out and about during the day. You feel the sun beating down on you and Nebha, the flame. In turn, you feel its anger with you. And although the days cooled by the breeze coming from the Sea of Marmara, for you, the heat is unbearable. It's like standing out in the desert sun once again, a fierce and fiery radiance that one cannot escape. No shade, no breeze, no splash of cold water brings you relief from the wrathful gaze of your judge. And in time, as you've found the spot that you intend to use, you discuss the matter with Minervina, and the heat rises to sort of a blinding crescendo. and everything goes white for a moment. For you, at least. And you feel yourself lost in the blinding eminence of your judge. And through this blinding white, there comes a splash of color, a sign, a vision. You see it now. It comes into focus. It is a crude image. You see side of a building. And as your eyes sort of adjust, as your pupils narrow through this brilliant light, it appears to be perhaps the side of a church, though you don't recognize this one. But what you do see, what is unmistakable, is a, shall we say, crude work of art that has been painted upon its surface. What you see is a rather grisly, grim sight. It seems to depict the body of Christ, and surrounding the body of Christ are a congregation, shall we say, of priests and peasants, and they engage in a quite literal communion. These people depicted as quite literally consuming the flesh and blood of Christ. A greedy priest holds a golden chalice to Jesus' side where he had been pierced with the lance, and collects the blood overflowing from the wound. Another woman has her hands thrust into Jesus' stomach and is pulling out Christ's entrails. Another man consumes his arm. A cannibalistic communion. And as you spy this brutal sight, this gory work of art, there is not quite a voice, but a feeling, an emanation, a mission that you receive from your judge. Its will becomes known to you, not less of a voice whispering in your mind, and more of a thought being implanted in you, to think a thought that is not your own. But nonetheless, it bubbles to the surface that this depiction here, that you must find whomever is responsible for this horrific piece. And then find once you've found this person responsible for this, you know that they have wronged your judge. They have committed some grievous sin of deception, some lie that has so offended Nebha that it has tasked you with exposing them and punishing them for transgressing against its commandment. And you understand that this is no ordinary mission from your judge. This is a way of rectifying the situation, an act of penance for the transgressions you have made, for your small, little lie. For your judge, for your judge so abhors deception that it will not permit you to enjoy this aspect of human existence. These conveniences should be denied to you. But nonetheless, as soon as this vision, this implanted mission of sorts, reaches you, it just as quickly fades from your memories. Or I should say from your vision, rather. From your sight, leaving you alone with Minervina once again, who now, with the tables turned, looks at you rather quizzically and says, everything okay? You seemed a bit, lost in thought there.
I seem to have overstepped my bounds with someone.
Oh.
Rightfully so. That is a matter for me to clean up. Don't worry yourself with it. So how far are we along with preparations?
You found the site that you want. You know, you've kind of surveyed the area. You've found, you know, a place that you think is secluded enough. And at this point, it's just kind of a matter of waiting, as it were, until the sun sets and you can operate under the cover of night, should you so choose.
Okay, so you know what? In the interest of kind of speeding things up, I'll touch Minervina about Nepa. Wait, I can do that, right? That's not an issue, right?
No, that's not an issue. But what are you getting at here? Are you just trying to, you know, fill her in on what your reality is? Or is this more of an ulterior motive? Are you kind of continuing down that line of social maneuvering that you've been doing earlier? Is this another attempt at sort of luring her into your service or the service of your cult? Or is this something more innocent, I suppose?
I think this one's a little bit more innocent.
Sure.
I guess more of explaining, I guess, like what a judge is and like Neba's whole deal about, you know,
what you're about.
Maybe it's a little bit about like me reviewing my like maybe like a self-reflection. Well, I guess just talking about Nebha and deception and oh shoot.
Sure. So
yeah, I guess more or less cutting over the details and
yeah, just having a nice little, you know, kind of like just, are you just kind of like trying to pass the time essentially, while you wait? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you take the time to speak about your judge, about Nebha, flame, its her view, and of course this leads into more questions and more questions. You refer that you serve this Nebha, the flame, your judge. What naturally follows? Well, what's a judge? And you can explain what a judge is, and that follows its own questions. What do the judges do? Where are the judges? Which leads into discussions of what duat is and the afterlife, and before you know it, you find the hours flying by as you get caught up in this discussion, as you enlighten Minervina on the Aramite faith that you are so well accustomed to, you are so very knowledgeable of. You might say it's your specialty. Nonetheless, before long, you do find that night has fallen. Time passes when you're having fun, I suppose, or at least reminiscing about the faith with someone who will actually listen for a change, someone that isn't waiting on you hand and foot, who isn't listening to you out of some religious observance, out of fealty or fear, but out of a genuine curiosity. I think you might find it perhaps refreshing to have a genuine discussion, I suppose. And Minervina is interested. She's almost insatiably curious, greedily sort of devouring what knowledge you're willing to share with her. But nonetheless, all good things must come to an end, and as the gaze of Ra slips beneath the horizon, it becomes time for more clandestine activities. It's time to dig, I suppose, and no doubt you've come prepared. And just to clarify, at least if not for me, then for the audience, what exactly you're planning on doing here for this burial, how you endeavor to go about it. I'll scratch that. I'll turn the narrative reins over to you for a second. Tell us how this burial goes, how you envision it.
I guess generally it's so with the curiosity, I did some reading through the Bible, and I also consulted that one old man at the Hagia Sophia. So I guess it's kind of a Christian inspired burial. So probably unfortunately, because of well, a combination of my actions and the state I found the bodies, there's no real good way to split them all up. So probably it's gonna be probably like dig but I feel it's an appropriately deep grave and
A mass
uh
grave, essentially.
yeah. And then I guess with the finishing of it, hold I guess like a little bit of a ceremony. I guess leave some words for some words for the dead. I guess digging through the Bible. A little bit of a passage here, inspired by you, and some cliches. The righteous perish, and no one takes it to heart. The devout are taken away, and no one understands the righteous. Uh, and no one understands that the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil. Those who walk wrongly enter. Those who walk uprightly enter into peace, and they find rest as they lie in death. We therefore commit these bodies to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in sure and certain hope of the resurrection of eternal life.
All right. So, yeah, in a strangely, perhaps, Christian ceremony, you you consign these souls to the afterlife, and you know, you read a passage from the Bible that you had uncovered in your chambers within the tomb, and as you kind of put the Bible away, kind of perhaps flipping through the pages, as it were, as you go to put it away, you're rummaging through the volume here, has seemingly dislodged something within the pages. There's a small parchment that slips out and falls to the ground beneath your feet. And picking it up, it's a curious little sight here. Written upon it is a missive of sorts, a calling to worship, a calling for the faithful of Azar's devoted, a call to gather at the chapel of the Virgin Martyrs on the foot of the seventh hill at twilight. Judging from the state of the paper, and given the state of your tomb, it's probably been here for a while. But perhaps it's a lead of sorts on whoever might have left this strange heretical work within your tomb. But as you're pondering this discovery, as you're considering what it entails, you've noticed that Minervine has been uncharacteristically quiet, shall we say. Usually you'd expect some sort of snarky remark at this point, some sort of, snide little comment on your sudden conversion to Christianity, or something, at least along those lines. But there's nothing from Minervina, and as you look up from this withered, or weathered, excuse me, missive, you see Minervina staring at the mass grave in front of you. And, you know, at this point there's a bit of a drizzle, as it were. But why don't you give me a perception check as you watch her, and or perhaps an empathy, either or. Wits and empathy, I suppose. Perception is wits and composure.
We'll do wits and empathy. It's the same regardless. No successes.
0 successes on 4 dice. Unfortunate. Well, nonetheless, she's just standing there, as the rain drizzles on her, and she just kind of seems locked, eyes locked on the mound of bones that's in this shallow mass grave. But the two of you have dug. You know, you've just given your little speech, as it were, and at this point, you know, all that's left is to mound the dirt back on top of the bodies. Given these two things, what is it that you do? How do you respond?
Well, I'll take care of finishing it up, but I guess I'll inquire with her that let's see. I guess I'll bring up with her how she see her reactions to these bodies in particular. I'll ask if they make her uncomfortable or.
Yeah, you kind of walk up to her and you.
Yeah, she's clearly not herself.
Yeah, you ask her, and there's no response. She just keeps staring at the bodies. You do.
I'll ask if she has had any dreams about the bodies.
You ask again. There's no response. Her eyes don't even flicker in your direction. She doesn't seem to even recognize your presence. She just keeps staring.
I guess when I finish, I'll maybe wave my hand in her front of her face a little bit. I'm trying to make some noise, try to get her attention.
You wave your hand in front of her face, and to your surprise, there's 0 reaction from Minervina. Her eyes don't even flutter. There's not a twitch on her face. And you get this sort of sneaking suspicion that this isn't her ignoring you. This isn't just lost in thought. Something is wrong here. Kind of snap in her face. Nothing.
What's my
And
model?
at this point, being up in her face, kind of waving, snapping, trying to get her attention, you notice something that you didn't spy from before. Up close and personal with Minervina. It's not just the rain that's pitter pattering on her face. You notice the distinct rivulets of tears beginning to form around her eyes and kind of running down the side of her cheek, swiftly merging with the other, shall we say, droplets that find their mark upon her face. But there's no movement, no blinking, no sobbing, just soundless tears. What do you do?
Got a quote Blade Runner there. Tears in the rain. Come on.
All these moments.
I don't think I have any powers that can directly. Is there a roll I can make as a mummy to see if there's anything magical going on?
I mean, that kind of depends on what powers that you have available to you. At least in your case. Let's see here. Well, it's not a, perhaps advised move. If you want to sort of go all out, you could certainly use one of your utterances to try and snap her out of it. You know, you might do something unmistakable, a display of power, perhaps something particularly loud or bright that you might try and rouse her, or you might try something perhaps more subtle, perhaps something like dreams of dead gods, trying to pull at the strings of her mind with a compulsion of your own, or perhaps you do something more mundane. I don't know if you're skilled in medicine, but you could also take the, I suppose, classic approach of trying to quite literally shake it out of her. But that depends on how much you're willing to escalate, like shaking, slapping, or resorting to some display of deific power. Flashbanging with power of ray.
Make her blinded. She's been in that smoke before. I'll probably do something more mundane and just try to, I guess, like, I don't know, like, shake her a little bit. Nothing too aggressive.
Yeah. So kind of moving up the escalation scale, you kind of shake Minervina a bit. Kind of gently at first, and you kind of increase the intensity as she fails to respond, and you get to the point where you're kind of throttling her back and forth, and something snaps in that moment, and Minervina just lets out a scream, and her arms like start flailing, like she tries to like break away from you and run into the night. Do you try and make an effort to hold on to her, or do you let her run? Do you let her try and get this out of her system? How do you respond as you got this, panicked, frightened woman shrieking and flailing in your arms? Do you try and hold her? Do you try and calm her, or do you kind of let go and let her come to her own senses, hopefully?
Well, I don't think restraining her is the best option.
What? No.
Judo throw.
Yeah, a male withholding a woman that's screaming in the woods. Seems like a hard thing to explain. I'll probably I'll let her go. I guess I'll try to say some comforting things, or try to keep her calm. But if she takes off, probably just probably follow her.
Sure. Why don't you give me?
That's not a good idea either.
Why don't you give me? We'll say, in this case, let's go with a presence and empathy roll, as you try and calm her, try and be that presence that she needs, and hopefully
I got
prevent her
this.
from running, from fleeing into the night. And you do have a single success. So, she kind of, Minervina kind of breaks away from you, and you see her kind of chest heaving, breathing fast, breathing heavy, and you try and calm her and remind her that everything's okay, you're safe, and you see Minervina kind of ready to make a break for it, as it were. She kind of staggers backwards and reconsiders, and breathing kind of slows, and she kind of looks around, and her eyes kind of settle back onto you. And you see her kind of holding her head in her hands, and she kind of tries to shake it off, essentially. And in that moment, she kind of drops to a knee, kind of stumbling, kind of half falls, and she kind of holds out a hand, just trying to hold you off before you advance on her, and she kind of slowly pulls herself back up onto her feet, and she kind of looks at you and looks at herself, and she says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me." And she's slowly starting to come back to her old self, but something's undeniably off, and even as she apologizes for her outburst, even you notice that this whole time her hand hasn't stopped shaking. do.
Oh, I also asked her if she had a vision.
Minervina kind of looks at you and she says, I don't want to talk about it. You get the implication that the answer is probably yes, given her response. But clearly, whatever she's seen has troubled her deeply. Do you push the issue? Do you try and get her to speak more of it, or do you leave it at that?
I think I'm gonna leave it there, but I guess probably start to head back, at which I'll probably talk to her about
kind of bring it up on the way back to the tomb per se. You know, give it some time and then kind of gently bring the subject up later, or what are you thinking?
I think I was gonna actually lead into the conversation because one of the reasons I was cleaning the tomb and stuff is I guess exploring her magical talents. Just trying to making it a more comfortable environment and safer environment for that.
Okay.
I guess I'll talk about her, like I'll talk because I know about the visions and stuff. I guess I'll maybe talk about them and exploring them and trying to provide I guess, I don't know, an environment for it. And I'll probably also mention that I also have a task I need to take care of. If it gets a little too uncomfortable, whatever, I'll bring up the task I have to complete.
Yeah. So just to kind of clarify, so you mentioned like trying to make it more comfortable for her, you know, that you were like cleaning out the tomb. I'm just trying to get to your motive, your intention here in this conversation. What exactly are you hoping to achieve as you speak with her? Are you trying to get her to like open up about her powers, or trying to convince her to like let you help her with said powers?
I guess the idea is I'd be kind of in a roundabout way, maybe trying to convince her to work with me by showing that I've been working to prepare a spot for her, if that makes sense.
Okay, that you've been kind of doing this burial in an attempt to like prepare a ritual space for her, that she might have like a more conductive environment, shall we say?
Because I think we talked about exploring her stuff before.
Indeed,
previously.
yes. There was some discussion on the matter of converting her into a sorcerer for your cult. So in that case, that's going to sound like another social maneuvering role here, and you've already made a little bit of progress on this endeavor before. As far as to what this role would be, you know, I could see it going perhaps one or three ways. I could see you following the trend of empathy and trying to be like, oh, I've prepared this space for you, like, let me help you. I could see that as an avenue. I could also just see something more, standard, like a persuasion, like a manipulation persuasion, and just trying to convince her that this is, the logical or rational choice to be making. Or you might make more of, shall we say, an appeal to authority, doing something like an occult role of trying to, like, convince her that what's, I don't want to say what's best for her, but things that she does not that could help her.
You know what? I kind of like the idea of trying to appeal to a more occult manner. Because she does seem thirsty for knowledge and,
Sure.
I guess, learning more about it.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and, again, since this is social maneuvering, you can be a little more outside the box, shall we say, with what roles you use to try and convince people. Let's do an intelligence and occult roll, as you attempt to sort of, I don't want to say impress her with your knowledge, but kind of prove to her that you know enough about the subject that you are an authority of sorts, and that by trusting in your expertise that she might better understand or better handle this gift, or, depending on your perspective, curse that she possesses.
Oh, just checking Infinity here. Can't use it. I can reinforce an attribute with by spending a pillar point, right?
You can
yes, but
reinforce your.
Or is that only physical?
It's
physical.
It's only physical, with the exception of your decree.
Okay.
Your decree does give you a choice that you can increase on a 1/1 basis, and I think for Nesrem,
Stamina and resolve.
let's see. Yeah, their favorite attributes are stamina or resolve. So neither of them would be
Okay. Okay.
for you. But
Well, I got a pretty good roll here, so.
if you're thinking about down the future, you would be thinking of some affinities. I think Wisdom of the Ancients lets you boost your mental attributes with pillar points. And
Divine Countenance allows your social.
Yeah, Divine Countenance is social, and those are Ba and Ab, respectively.
Okay. Oh, well, I got a pretty good dice pool for this, so I feel confident. Oh, look at that!
Who needs extra dice, right? 5 successes.
It's exceptional.
Yeah, that is an exceptional assignment.
You smart. She listened.
Yeah, she does listen. She hears you out on your sort of appeal to authority here. And you finish burying the bodies, as it were, and kind of sum things up. Yes, you manage to sort of impress upon her that you understand her abilities better than she perhaps realizes, and through you she might gain more control over it. And sort of given the way that you've sort of peppered these secrets out, per se, you've laid out the trail of breadcrumbs for this eager, curious mortal. Minervina, has essentially taken the bait, hook, line, and sinker. And she agrees to come with you and see what you have in store. And she will join you at the tomb when you are, I suppose, ready. You know, you did kind of mention to her that you had some other business to attend to, but when you are ready, she is willing to learn.
Perfect.
All right. With that, we'll kind of bring that little scene here to a close. And let's see here. Who, which one of the rest of you two wants to pick things up from there as we kind of rewind time a bit to Minervina and Nesret leaving the tomb. As you and Tomos are debating what to do next.
Yeah, I think I can take over here while that's happening. Yeah, and she sits in the tomb. She's thinking about all the things that the White Jackal told her about the talisman, and she feels her fleeting second and knows that she doesn't have a lot of time to get this done. Yeah, and I think and she like thinks on like, okay, how would I go about acquiring an appropriate relic of my guild? And after a moment of thinking, she resolves to perusing her library. Maybe somewhere in there, some old records, maybe even guild records of relics left in the world. Maybe there's like something there that she can pick at to give her a lead to go on or something.
Okay. In that case, why don't we start this little investigation off with that then? It sounds to me like I believe an academics role to peruse your library here. Though I could also see occult being applicable as well.
I'm quite happy to use academics.
I mean, they'll give you different responses, shall we say. They might flavor the information you receive.
So this is we're using cafe here, so I add my intelligence, academics, and my second to this roll. 11, 18 dice, and I believe, this is a guild relic I'm looking for, so it says road. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 dice. I get to roll again. 12 successes, Trevor?
12 successes, yeah.
Oh, I forgot a die. Sorry, I forgot to have my library merit. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, 13 successes.
13 successes. Well, one would expect you to have an apt mastery of your own personal library. No, shall we say, surprise there that you have a expert command of your own tomes and scrolls. And indeed, you kind of pick through your library back at the tomb here, searching for something, some scrap of information that might lead you in the right and do manage to find something, a particular passage that almost seems to jump out as you peruse the scrolls and parchment. There is a reference that you find in one of your texts. A lead, perhaps, or should we say a rumor, and judging from the handwriting, perhaps one that you had pursued in a previous lifetime, or at least considered it pertinent enough to record as a footnote one of these papyrus scrolls. And in this reference, you find a mention of something called the Disc of Aten. And from what brief information you have written here, it appears to be an engraved signet ring, one made of ceramic and gold, with a solar motif, one that allegedly contained mystical properties, and with that resounding exceptional success, perhaps a bit of history that you can, shall we say, connect to that. This reference to Aten, it triggers some recollection in your mind that sends you down another rabbit hole of perusing through your library here. A little bit of history that was nearly erased. This Aten figure, a solar deity, one of not Irem, but its successor, of Kemet, the Black Land, or Egypt, as they call it in this day and age. Aten was a deity that had been thrust upon the populace by the pharaoh, Akhenaten, one who had decreed that the old gods would no longer be worshipped, that Aten would be the only divine figure of worship. And, of course, the pharaoh was Aten's divine emissary. And more than that, given your ridiculously astounding successes, as I had mentioned, this piece of history was nearly erased. You know that this sudden and drastic shift to monotheism was not received well by the people of Egypt, who had been worshipping their gods for millennia. When Akhenaten finally passed into Duat, his religion was more or less buried alongside him. His faith ground to dust, his name stricken from the records. His successors making an effort to, shall we we say, delete that unsightly period of time, history. And perhaps this relic you seek, that your senses of Kefir seem to be pulling you towards, may have some connection to this time, place, and history. But now that you are, shall we say, aware of this vessel's existence and have some idea of what it is, now it's just a matter of, well, finding it. Which perhaps is the more difficult task, a veritable needle in a haystack, you might say.
Would you say that with that exceptional knowledge information, I would have gained the informed condition?
Let's see here. Yeah. You know what, I will give you that for the exceptional. I'll give you the informed condition. That sounds appropriate.
And thinking of the successor state of Irem and the Middle Kingdom, Susette's mind wanders back to the Hippodrome and the obelisk that was pilfered and put in its place there. And she wonders about the history of that. And I think begins to take a short walk back towards the Hippodrome. As she wants to dig up any she knows the rough history of it, and that it's a monument to a old pharaoh declaring his victory over some rival I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. But if the emperors of Constantinople have pilfered Egypt before, learning about how times it has happened before might also shed some light on the whereabouts of this disc.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's fair enough. So, yeah. Heading down that
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Say.
probably like try speaking to the people around the Hippodrome about that. Well, the people in the Hippodrome.
Yeah. So let's see here. With that, it's not, shall we say, too much of a trip for you. But at this point, you've probably spent a few hours poring over your library, cross-referencing this and that, and you finally peel yourself away from your tomb here, and make your way to the Hippodrome. So you mentioned that you more wanted to ask the locals, as it were.
Oh, try to find somebody knowledgeable about the obelisk and about the trying to dig up the history of it. And I figure the people that probably know the most about that probably would be located around the Hippodrome, or left checking out anyway.
Sure. Okay. So, let's see here. With with that. Okay. So you go to inquire with the locals. Now, are you just like stopping people on the street, or are you trying to like make your way into somewhere specific near the Augustion or near the Hippodrome? Are you trying to like get into like the baths or one of the palaces or the Imperial Palace itself or the Hagia
Probably
Sophia,
like
or just
one of like the palaces. They're probably more knowledgeable than the regular people on the street. Actually, yeah, maybe the Hagia Sophia. That's really close next to the Hippodrome, isn't it?
Yeah, not too terribly far.
Yeah. The priests are usually learned men, aren't they? Aren't they?
Typically, yeah. Typically, the priests do tend to be amongst the more educated of classes.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, I probably make my way there, towards the Hagia Sophia to pester priests and try to learn about the relics pilfered from other cultures.
All right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you make your way over to Sophia, leaving the safety and security of your tomb, hoping to pester the priests there and poke and prod their brains for more on plundered Egyptian items, as it were. And at this time of day, kind of pushing into the mid-afternoon, the church here, the basilica, is somewhat busy. People kind of go to and fro, making their offerings or sitting in fashion, trying to, much as yourself, speak with the priests there. And it doesn't take you long to find another one of these priests who seems perhaps free and interested in speaking. Now, how exactly are you intending to approach this? Trying to get the dice pool here. Is this? Are you trying to have like an academic conversation? Are you trying to just sort of do your typical sort of socializing with the patronizing with the priests and trying to kind of loosen them up that way? How are you?
I imagine it's probably a bit of both, but leaning towards the academics.
Okay.
Since it's a better dice pool.
Both
are still amazing, but yeah. Yeah, academics and presence, I guess, would be or would academics and intelligence?
It'd probably be more towards academics and intelligence. However, since you are repeating the same skill here for this investigation, it will give you a cumulative 1 die penalty. So,
alright.
Nothing too serious at this point, but
I only have 17 dice with rote. Ooh. Oh, there we go. 7 successes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I get to roll 9 more dice. Ooh, oh wow, that came up with nothing. But 7 successes.
All right. So
Another exception.
yeah, you spend another couple hours, chatting with the priests here, trying to kind of, again, see what they know, and they have a bit to speak on the region, though none of them are particularly, shall we say, interested in the old faith or the history of diocese of Egypt. But from what you can gather with that, what you can learn, much. How do I put this? It confirms your suspicion that this is not. Oops, excuse me. This is not just a one-off, as it were. That other items had been plundered from Egypt, and many of them brought here to Constantinople. Now, none of them are, shall we say, particularly knowledgeable of specific relic that you seek. I'm assuming you try and bring it up at some point in the conversation, and they can mention that they know of treasures that have been plundered, but they can't speak for certain that they've seen the one that you have laid eyes upon, or that you seek, rather. But given that, they do have, shall we say, a direction for you to go in. The priest here suggests you might continue search elsewhere. That most likely these items that you seek have made their way into likely one of two places. Either the item you seek, if it resides here in Constantinople, has been plundered and now sits in the possession of a patrician, perhaps some wealthy individual might take an interest in such treasures of an ancient age. The other avenue that they suggest, aside from a private collection, that much like the obelisk, such a treasure may have been claimed by the throne of the emperor. And if this is the case, there would likely be some record of what had been plundered. And this inventory, as it were, you might be able to, say, find a mention of it there, which might give you some inclination of whose hands it may be in, or at least whose hands last touched it.
Chisette's gonna, after that then, is the Hippodrome particularly busy today, I should ask? As she starts making her way towards there and see if there any of the upper crust of society she can hobnob around and mingle with.
Yeah. On that note, the Hippodrome itself isn't particularly busy after all. The races were just the other day. But there is some activity within the Hippodrome. You wager likely, teams training or the like for the next event. But there is, no, crowd that fills the stands, that sort of thing. But on the subject of patricians and nobility, you are in a rather, shall we say, well-suited avenue, as it were. Both the Imperial Palace and countless other palaces tend to be concentrated around the Augustion here. Though, shall we say, approaching a patrician's manner and demanding an audience is a bit of bit forward.
Bold move. Colin.
Yes,
Yeah.
a bit of a bold move. But there is one place where a foreigner such as yourself might more readily brush shoulders. Actually, this sounds like a politics role for me, or no, yeah,
Politics?
I think politics is probably the best here.
Politics, or like what attribute here? Intelligence, presence.
You're trying to sort of intuit out, a means of getting to a patrician.
Manipulation.
Yourself. Let's, in this case, I think this is more of a knowledge role. Let's go wits and politics as you try and figure out an avenue of attack here.
And I rolled pretty garbage there, but I still got some successes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 12 extra dice to roll. Holy crap! I mean, it's a success. I make progress, but geez, that is a horrible roll. Out of 25 dice, I get 2 successes.
Indeed.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, a success is still a success. And while you don't quite make the dramatic progress you've been making thus far, it does put you one step closer to your goal. You know two avenues that you can think of. One is perhaps a bit more, say, up to chance. Near the Hippodrome lies the baths, which are the few places where a shared public communal space where even nobility might rub shoulders with peasantry. It is possible that you might run into patrician there, that you might be able to make friends, as it were, and begin to ingratiate yourself into their circle. The other thing that you consider, given your recent history, is perhaps a bit more direct and a bit less up to luck, as it were. You do know a patrician. You had encountered one just the other day. A patrician who had taken a distinct interest in you. One who had seen you in his dreams. Nicophorus, who has been, I would say, waiting for a display of your divinity, as it were, of your magical prowess, proof of your powers. He might be perhaps a more direct avenue into seeding yourself into the ranks of the nobility certainly, yes, a more direct avenue. And if anyone is perhaps cognizant of the, shall we say, the who's who of the city, a patrician with very ambitious dreams, is probably fairly knowledgeable on that subject. Though dealing with Nicophorus might be a bit of an endeavor on its own.
Well, I got a deal with him anyway.
As you have your own business there beyond your quest here, and I suppose it's up to you on whether you think you want to get back to Nicophorus at this point, or if you want to keep him on the back burner, as it were, as you perhaps pursue other leads, whether that's checking for the spoils of war, records of those, or trying your hand at baths. But
maybe I can kill two birds with one stone here, and yeah, Sisette makes her way towards Nicophorus's manor on the 5th hill, I believe it was.
Yeah, towards the 5th hill. So, on that note, as Sachet takes her leave, heading towards the manor of Nicophorus, we're also going to take a bit of a leave of our own, as we're going to head to break here for just a couple minutes. And when we come back, we are going to see what Tomos has been up to during this time. So sit tight, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes here. right, and we are back here. So, picking up where we had just left off here, we are going to transition things as we see what Thomas has been up to in the meantime. Well, Sachet has been following her leads, and Nesret has been burying his bodies. What is Thomas doing at this time?
Well, first things first, he's going to go to Eutropius and pay off the debt and speak to Victalius about his former cultists that he knows about.
Well, let's start things off, shall we? So you leave the tomb and make your way to the humble abode of the good doctor Tropius. It doesn't take you too terribly long to cross the city, and as you arrive and make your way into the abode, you can already hear sort of the sounds of quiet conversation as you kind of poke your head in. And you can see that the doctor, Tropius, is hard at work, and much to your perhaps pleasing to your sight is seeing Vitalius up and about, or at least up on the bed that he has been sort of stuck to for too long now. Sitting up of his own accord is a good sight. And you see the good doctor is changing Vitalius's bandages, and from the looks of it, at least from your untrained eye, he seems to be doing better. There's a certain degree of vitality in his demeanor that wasn't quite present before. And Alexia is kind of in the corner of the abode and seems to be passing the time for this merry little band by playing a nice little song on a lyre for the group here. So you come into this surprisingly pleasant scene here. How do you react? What do you do?
I kind of decide to knock on the door to get their attention.
Sure. So, you've been kind of peeking in the window there, and you knock at the door, and everyone kind of freezes for a second, and you see and kind of muffled hear Eutropius kind of ask Alexia to fetch the door as he attempts to kind of hurriedly finish bandaging Vitalius. And Alexia opens the door to their home, and you are greeted with her smiling face. A face which seems to it kind of flashes through a couple different emotions. as your face is the one that greets hers. At first, there's a bit of confusion, and then that spark of recollection, and that smile returns to Alexia's face. And looking at you, she kind of gives you a bit of a look over, as it were, and how do we put this? You're not exactly in the greatest of shape. You had taken quite a singeing, as it were, with your run-in with that alleged Schwonks cult. And she notices the burns on your skin, the kind of singeing on your clothes, perhaps a bit of ash still clinging here and there, unsightly in certain spots. And that smile kind of turns to a bit of concern, and she says, it's good to see you again, Petrus. Are you okay? You you look like you've had a bit of an accident.
Oh, you.
Something about not playing with fire or mixing fire and alcohol. But I'll deal with that here. At the moment, I hold up the sack of gold. I believe payment's in order.
And her eyes kind of grow wide as you produce a hefty clinking satchel. And Alexia does not take this, but she kind of she gets Eutropius's attention. She's like, brother, and Eutropius kind of stops what he's doing, and just gives Vitalius a bit of a nod as he kind of yanks the last knot on the bandage there tight, and turns to address you. And he too spies the satchel of coin in your hand, and Eutropius says, well, that was quicker than I thought.
What did you expect this to take a few weeks?
Well, I mean, you had suggested you'd have the money by the end of the week, but I'm not complaining that it's here now. I'm
No need to worry. I was merely jesting.
quite pleased to see that you've been able to arrange for payment. Thank you. This will more than suffice. Do you hand him the entire satchel here, or do you try and, should we say, portion it out for the doctor here?
I'll ask him one thing quick. Before I your earnings, do you think perhaps this is enough to cover treatment for myself? And I kind of gesture towards the burn singes on my body.
And he kind of looks at you, and his sort of highly trained analytical eyes kind of spy the burns on your flesh, and kind of leans back for a second and says, Sure. I mean, you're already here. I already have my tools out. I don't see why not. Yeah, sure. I'd be
Very good.
more than happy to take a look at your wounds and at least try to clean them.
Very good. And I'll just give him the whole satchel that way.
Okay. And the doctor seems quite pleased with this, and Vitalius kind of gives you kind of just a knowing nod from his position in the room, not wanting to interject in the conversation, shall we say, but still trying to make it known that he sees you, that he acknowledges your existence here, but not wishing to be rude and interrupt his master, his lord.
I'll just nod back real quick.
So, well, do you want me to get started on you right away, or were you here to discuss Vitalius's condition, or how can I be of assistance in this moment?
Well, give me an update on Vitalius. How's he doing, and what's his prognosis?
Well, as you can see, he's certainly made improvements. He's been fairly quick to heal. But his recovery is not exactly over. Well, he is, I mean, as you can see, conscious. He's certainly able to be out and about at this point. I don't have any problems with releasing him from my care, but he's not, shall we say, back into peak condition. If you were to consider this, shall we say, termination of my services here, if you are happy with this, I would caution the both of you to avoid getting in any more entanglements in the future. I've done my best to clean your wounds and set your injuries, but you haven't entirely healed yet. It will take some time. And any injuries that you sustain in the meantime are, of course, only going to exacerbate those that have yet to heal. Any light activity, sure, but I would avoid any hard labor or any dangerous activity, at least until everything has had time to set and settle. But if the two of you have business to attend to, I'm fine releasing him. But if you wish me to continue my treatment until he is back at full capacity, I'm more than fine with that. Whatever you so choose, of course.
Perhaps a few more days, then. A few more days of treatment. I'd much rather have him at peak condition than take a chance right now.
Understandable. And I will see to it that he continues to receive proper care. Well, with that settled, well, why don't we take a look at you? Do you mind? And he kind of motions for you to kind of remove your singed vestments so we can examine the extent of your injuries, as it were.
So long as you don't.
It's just a part of the job, I'm afraid.
Very well. I'll remove the singed clothing.
And with that, Eutropius takes takes an awkward few minutes as he kind of pours his attention over your burns, your scars, trying to judge the severity of the burns and what might be done to speed their healing. And you can kind of see a bit of a flustered Alexia in the corner, who is a bit taken aback that there is now two half-dressed men in their family home. You've kind of realized at this point that she's not one to handle awkwardness or, shall we say, embarrassment well, and this is no different here. But and perhaps it's a bit of mutual embarrassment as you're kind of, I want to say, how do I want to put this? As you're being examined, and I want you to make a memory roll. As this uncomfortable feeling sort of washes over you. Perhaps there's something familiar there. There isn't. There's this sort of sense of deja vu as the doctor examines you here, kind of manipulating your limbs, looking you over, assessing you. There's some sort of familiarity here, some memory, but you can't quite seem to bring it to the surface. It sits there dark and murky, but you can't help but shake the feeling that there's something familiar here, something that this situation reminds you of. You can't quite place it. And your struggle to remember why this is so familiar is cut short by the final prognosis of Eutropius here, who quite plainly mentions that he's, well, I am quite surprised you were even able to come to me in this condition. Not many people would be walking the state of injury you find yourself in. Many would be, let's just say many wouldn't share a certain capacity for pain you seem to possess. Moving those burns tends to be, at least in my experience, quite painful. You seem to have endured it quite well. I commend you on either your mental fortitude or your physical tolerance, I suppose. Either way, you are an ideal patient, shall we say.
Careful what you say. I have decent endurance, I will say that. And a very dogged determination. So I suppose that's what aids me.
Well, hopefully that dogged determination doesn't lead you back into a fire again. Well, I'll see what I can do. Well, I suppose take a seat and we'll get to it. And he kind of, snaps at Alexia, his makeshift nurse of sorts, and the two sort of get down to the business of debriding your wounds, cleaning out your burns, applying oils, ointments, and the like to try and speed your recovery. This takes better part of the day as they unfortunately have to go piece by piece working their way across the multitude of burns you've endured. So, sort of spot treating you, I suppose you might call it. And with that, you do feel a bit better, shall we say. The doctor seems to have some success in treating your wounds here. And with this, the medical care you've received today, it will manage to downgrade one of your wounds from aggravated to lethal.
I'll take it.
And on that same note, if I remember correctly, I think you heal lethal every 15 minutes.
Half an hour.
Or half an hour, something like that. So, yeah, so he spends better part of the day tending to your wounds, him and Alexia. He gives you some time to catch up with a lot of them as you're being treated. Aside from any small talk that a lot of you share, are there any particular points of conversation that you try and bring up with any of the parties present, or do you more or less try and keep quiet for the duration of your stay
Well,
today?
Maybe in between treatment of one of my burns, I might ask Eutropius and Alexia if I could speak to Vitalius privately for a moment.
Sure. Of course, yes. And Alexia and Eutropius kind of exit the room and retreat to their chambers to leave you alone with your inheritor and now spy master. So so now that you're alone, how do you approach Vitalius?
I glance at him and say, "You're probably wondering how I got these." And I gesture towards all the bandaged burns.
Well, I can hazard a guess. But please, do tell.
I will say this. In our Moret's quest to retrieve tablets for the Whitechapel, we came across a certain individual. The one in a church. I don't know if you've heard yet, but the Church of St. Peleotus has recently been burned with crisp.
Well, I can't say I've had the opportunity to talk much with the fair people of this city, so no, I wasn't aware of that, but that's that's something. Well, I mean, at least you seem to be more or less all right. I hope the rest of your mission went well.
In the end, we did get what we were looking for, but we came across a masked man wielding fire. And I have reason to believe he may be, pronunciation Shuang Sen, right?
What was that?
What was the name of that group? Shuang Sen? Or...
The White Jackal had suggested that this gang of thieves was likely a cult that was operating under the patronage of a Shuang Sen. And,
yeah, okay, that's...
and also that this masked man is perhaps personally connected to this Shuang Sen, as they've had run-ins with this masked man before, and he's proved himself rather difficult to kill, and it gave the White Jackal either the impression that this fellow is immortal, perhaps a facade of this Shuang Sen, or perhaps the role of this masked man is one that is shared across, it's a mantle that cultists, assume when the last one has perished.
I'll relay that to him. And I'll say, simply put, though, I find myself quite enraged that I was not able to kill him.
My apologies, my lord. I'm sure if only I had been there to assist you, perhaps things may have gone differently. Forgive me for my weakness.
I raise a hand. Do not feel responsible. Free Muret should have been able to contend with just about anything, but clearly this man was, well, more than just that. It's entirely possible you'd have met your end if you had tried to assist me.
Well,
however,
at least from the sounds of it, I think I may have already had run in with this individual, and it fairly nearly was my end.
You did, huh?
Yes. I had mentioned to you before, when I had been taken, the one who had reached out to me, Spy Master, at least from what you've described of him, I mean, it was dark, but it sounds an awfully lot like the man I'd encountered.
When you were captured?
Yes.
Well then.
Federdun.
I have no qualms then about making this man an enemy of our guild. Of our cult. Excuse me.
Well, I have no qualms with that. I wouldn't mind to see some vengeance of my own, I suppose.
Good.
I suppose we've both been... We're both aggrieved parties in this matter.
Then, I guess I believe once we've gotten a little bit more established again, one of our first priorities will be to make him pay for his transgressions. But that will have to wait. For now, I have another question for you. Could you give me the names of the other two cultists you believe were still around?
Yes. I can't say for sure if they still live, given
I understand.
given how
but
things have unfolded in the past, and more pertinently, the present. But
all the same, I would like to investigate while you heal. I'm going to need you in tip-top shape going forward.
Very well. I have my suspicions, at least. But there are two I've heard of that might yet live, besides myself.
And they are?
Antipatra Kurka. She's a slave to a patrician here in Constantinople. The other is Bonifacius Planudes. He's, well, I suppose you could call him a thug, a criminal, a pickpocket, a man of the streets.
Good.
I'm not one to judge.
As you shouldn't.
You could call us kindred souls, I suppose.
That is good to know. Well, good. It is good to know some of our fellow members might, in fact, be in areas which we've yet to infiltrate, but would be quite valuable to our spy network. Of course, I'll have to see if they still live or not compromised, at least.
Yes. I trust that you will find them. I have no...
May I ask, what do you know of, too? No need for grand details. General outlines of their work and their personalities.
Bonifacius, as I mentioned, he's a bit of a kindred soul. He's lived on the streets for much of his life, like myself. He's... I suppose you might call him perhaps a bit more rough around the edges. I preferred a, shall we say, a gentler touch when I could, but Bonifacius was not as discerning when it came to how he acquired his coin. But such a man has his uses, of course.
Indeed.
Given that he's a rather burly fellow, a number of scars. If I were searching for him, if I was in your position, I would ask about the streets for a man with a sort of jagged scar running down the length of his cheek. Let's just say he had a rather unfortunate run of luck one night. And he's had to live with that mistake. But that should at least help you find him. Antipatra, she's a bit of a quiet one.
Mm.
Which, again, has its uses. She's as innocuous as they come, and she has a good ear on her. But I think, if anything, she lacks a bit of initiative, I guess. I think there might be something considered too passive, I suppose. But then again, I tend to prefer a more hands-on approach myself. I prefer to be more active where I can, so I suppose to each their own, but I don't think she ever craved advancement. But regardless, I mentioned she's a slave to patrician here in Constantinople.
I may have to. I
don't quite
drag one of my Eret into this one.
Fair enough. I don't quite remember the name. But yes.
I'm sure there's not as many.
Family name. Acropolites, I believe it was.
Then I should be able to find them. Thank you.
Please, it's nothing. I'd much rather be out on the street helping you, but I suppose...
Soon enough, dear inheritor.
I'm glad, at least, to be of some assistance. To be, provide you some merit for the title that you've given me, at least.
I believe you will do quite well. In the next few days, anyway, I'll need your assistance with evaluating these two. So, for the moment, keep resting. I may need you in peak condition. Especially if we intend to go after this masked man in the future.
As you wish. All right. And feels like that's a good end to that little conversation there.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, you permit you to come out of their chambers and resume their treatment on you. And they do. But something is amiss as this treatment winds down for the day here. As Eutropius is tending to your wounds here, he kind of stops mid-technique, I suppose you'd say. And there's kind of this quizzical look on his face, and he kind of like does a little bit of a double take, and he's like, that's odd.
Something the matter?
Yes. Yes, something is, or maybe it's nothing. I could have sworn, your burns shrank since the last time I saw it. I must I must not have gotten enough sleep. Please, just disregard. I don't mean to.
Fret not.
Mean to offend you.
Oh, fret not. Oh, fret not, dear doctor.
And he kind of continues his treatment on you. Give me another wits and empathy roll here.
Wits and empathy. Let's see. Oh, brother.
Zero successes. So, Eutropius tells you to kind of disregard his previous statement, and that seems to be the end of that. And these things kind of wrap up for the day, or at least as much as Eutropius can treat you at the moment. As he kind of finishes the last of the bandages, he mentions that you're more than welcome to return, and we'd be happy to continue your treatment, change your bandages, clean your wounds again. But I'm sure you'll make a full recovery.
I may come back for a second round of treatment, Doctor.
Fine by me, yes. You've more than adequately compensated for such treatment. But I trust you do well. I mean, you're already looking better already. You're even a little less pale than when I'd seen you last.
Must be a testament to your skills, good doctor. I'll have to... Should I come into great amounts of wealth, I might have to put you on retainer.
Well, that would be something now, wouldn't it? I think that concludes today's treatment. There's not much I can do now, besides wait, of course. But do feel free to return when you're ready. And, we'll see to it that you're taken care of once again. And, of course, we'll see to it that Vitalis here continues to receive the same standard of care.
That's good to hear.
And perhaps try and stay away from fire, if you can help it.
I will try.
All right. With that, I assume you kind of bid the trio adieu, unless there's any lingering words left to be said.
No.
No. I believe there was one other matter that was pressing for you. There was
reliquary.
Yeah, a certain vessel that you had been meaning to search for, and
yes,
rather regrettably, now you've spent a good chunk of the day having your wounds tended to, but there's still some daylight hours left to burn, as it were, if you wanted to get a start on that. Unless there's something else that's drawing Thomas's attention.
I believe I should get a start on that relic.
Sure. On that note, as you begin your search for this ashen reliquary, how do you intend to go about that? Do you have an idea, or are you looking for suggestions?
Um,
How do you
I
intend
do
to
have a
start
question.
this? Yeah.
I think I might be a little confused, but you mentioned when searching for relics using Kepler.
Heifer, yes.
How does one go about doing that?
So essentially, it'll function as a typical investigation. There'll be essentially a number of clues that you will have to uncover, and each sort of investigative roll that you make, if successful, will help you unlock another clue.
Mhm.
These can be really any kind of rolls, as long as it's, shall we say, reasonable. You
Mhm.
might do the sort of archetypical role would be, well, investigation. Searching for clues the old-fashioned way, as it were. But it could easily be any number of things. We kind of saw a bit of Sachet's investigation there. You might start, hitting up musty old tomes, looking for mentions of this ashen reliquary. You might, chat up other knowledgeable people, or you might, as mentioned, hit the streets and do something like streetwise or investigation, searching for leads. Really, any skill can be applicable, and even you can kind of get into more esoteric skills, because Kefir isn't. It's describe it as scent in a regard, a mystic scent, if you will, or sense that helps kind of pull you in the direction of this relic. It both enhances any, shall we say, mortal investigation that you're engaging with, but it also gives you, shall we say, more mystical insights into this. You might do something like making an occult roll to try and, divine, the nature of this reliquary, or, in the same vein, you may make something like a resolve and composure, like some sort of meditation roll to try and, garner a vision or something like that. And speaking on the
You
subject,
mentioned
speaking of the subject of visions, the White Jackal had also suggested you might try and turn Minervina's precognitive abilities towards that end as well.
I may ask her first, considering she has more experience with that than myself would.
Okay. Is your sort of first order of business trying to find Minervina, or are there other,
I'll start with that first.
okay. So, I think that's a good point as any to wrap things up here, as Tomos's quest for the Ashen Reliquary leads him on a soon-to-be collision course with Minervina, who, as we've seen, has, shall we say, had some difficulties of her own, certain abilities that Nesret here has offered to help her, to tutor her on. But we'll see where that leads us next session here of Oceans of Eternity, and we'll see if the pair of our Arisen here can agree on turning Minervina's abilities towards your own ends. But nonetheless, that is a matter for next time. So, just wrapping things up here. Just a big thank you to you guys for joining me today, and thank you for everyone who's listened in, whether you're new to this chronicle or you've been with us for a while now. But before we get any further, let's touch base with our players here. What's going on with you guys? How are you guys feeling about how things are going thus far, and what's going on in your characters' heads? What are they thinking? What gears are turning?
Yeah, I've been having fun. It's just that's wanted to wait on visiting the patrician. I forget his name. She wanted to Nicophorus, was it? Yeah.
Nicophorus, yeah.
Yeah. She wanted to wait a little bit longer before talking to him again, but you know, it seems that fate has other plans in mind. And yeah, yeah, fate has other plans in mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, guess you can kill two birds with one stone with that.
Yeah, fair enough. What about the rest of you guys?
Thomas, first of all, I'm having fun kind of going into this more investigative route. Thomas is definitely, he's starting to get that dogged focus on that relic going forward. He definitely would like to get a hold of something to increase his power and help him with his pillars for the next time he has to face the masked man. So
Yes. And lastly, Zavlus, how are you doing and what's going on with Nesseret?
I'm doing well. Finally got those bodies buried.
Yeah.
Only been working on that for weeks. I mean, days.
It's typical, like anyone else in their home. You're just a deathless immortal with a bunch of corpses littering your room, and just finally stop procrastinating. Just a totally normal occurrence.
Got finally back him up those bones today. I've been putting it off for too long.
For like a decade plus.
Anyway.
I guess he's maybe a little pleased with his penance more than he should be, because it's penance. Because it doesn't sound. It sounds like something up his alley.
Yeah, punish. Find. Yeah.
This is a punishment.
Find the liar and give him hell. Yeah. Well, we'll see where that route takes you. Anyways, thanks again to you guys for playing today. Thanks again to everyone who's watched, and thank you to Onyx Path for having us on their channel, and thanks to Tabletop Audio for the background music. Lastly, just some shout outs, some plugs here for stuff going on with Onyx Path. Last Friday of the month, as usual, there's the Onyx Path game night over at startplaying.games. So if you are interested in playing any of the Onyx Path game lines, there should be plenty of games over there. So if you're interested, go ahead and check that out. There's also a media contest going on right now until April 30th here. They're looking for short videos uploaded with the hashtag OnyxPath and the name of the game that you're showing off in this little video clip will get entered into a competition to win $150 worth of Onyx Path books. And they're particularly looking for videos with content related to Scion, Trinity, They Came From, and Realms of Pugmire. Particularly interested in those if you have any sort of media ideas, shorts that you've got in mind. So get to creating if that's your thing, and you might win some free books there. And I believe they're going to announce the winner at the beginning of May. And there should be a form on their website that you can fill out to make sure that they get any entries that you might make noticed. Lastly, we've got two things, I suppose. The crowdfunding, the Trinity Continuums Player's Guide on BackerKit successfully raised over 43k out of its 15k goal. So big congrats to them, and thanks to anyone who happened to chipped in to that. And keep an eye out for the next Kickstarter or the next BackerKit. Next project that Onyx Path has brewing. Keep an eye out. I'm sure they'll be posting more information when they're ready. Lastly, keep on the subject of keeping your eyes out. Onyx Path Con is coming up June 16th through June 18th. So that'll be here before you know it. So check that out. Definitely something interesting if you interested in any of the Onyx Path game lines. So to conclude, once again, thanks to everyone for watching, and we all hope to see you on the next session here. So until then, take care and have a good one.